But no, thank y'all for coming on for sure. I'm gonna get that out the way up front. We really do appreciate y'all for coming back. And for those of you who are just joining us the first time, Jocelyn, Aurora, we really do appreciate y'all stepping up to the plate. Make your opportunity. Take the best of the chances that you get. If you got questions, you got comments, you got concerns, this is all literally for y'all today. I'm only here to make the conversation move. This is y'all's opportunity to be whatever you decide to be today. All right. So hopefully you can make the best of it for real. Everybody cool with that? Jocelyn, Aurora?
Josh, I just wanted to say, Aurora said she can't hear anything. I'm just gonna make sure she's actually connecting to the audio. So
Yeah,
if y'all see me looking at my phone, I'm just messaging her, just make sure she's helpful with the technical
for
difficulties.
sure. For sure. Um, cut your camera on if you can. In the meantime, we do want to see you. We do want to see you. Not in the creepy way, obviously, but we do want to see you. But everybody good? We're gonna get started here in shortly. Other than that, hopefully the people are getting comfortable, getting ready, pulling up their chairs, getting their cup of Kool-Aid, getting a little something to eat, wiping off their faces, and getting ready to go. Yeah.
I think you
All
should
right.
go 1 more minute, bro.
One
I,
more
I,
minute. One more
I think
minute.
you should.
One more minute. I'll stretch and just relax for a second or two. Yeah, Michaela catching it. She catching the spirit. Michaela is catching the spirit. We're gonna stretch for a little bit. We're gonna yawn. We're gonna clear our throat. And then we'll go ahead and yes, everybody's definitely pulling up a chair, getting ready for a real good conversation. I love it. And then we're gonna start in probably about 12 more seconds. And the people who watching already know why. That's in the comments.
Hey, bro, there you go. At 1 minute, there you go.
Yeah. All right. So let's get started. Welcome, Frontline. Again, we were back at it. We're trying to make sure that today we let the students have their voices be heard. We got a special guest, Chief Neil Noakes of the Fort Worth Police Department. Thank you so much. And we definitely want to remind all of you who are tuning in to go vote if you haven't done so already. Off top, we got to get the housekeeping out the way. Go vote. Y'all already understand the importance of that. So I'm going to move forward back to the students at hand. Legitimately, again, I said it before, this is the day that we are united again with Upward Bound of the Texas Wesleyan Upward Bound program and Community Frontline making it happen. So thank y'all for this partnership part 2. And we thanking all of you students who wanted to step up to the plate, like we said again. So at this time, I like for y'all to introduce yourselves. I'm gonna go with Jocelyn and Aurora. Well, when she gets connected, I'm gonna go with Jocelyn first. Introduce yourself to the people. Say what's up to the people. Let them know what school you go to, what grade you in, and we'll go on from there.
Hi, my name is Jocelyn, and I'm in 10th grade, and I go to Hill Jarvis.
We kind of got a couple of technical difficulties with that. See if you can mute and unmute yourself, and we can get that quite handled really quickly. But in the meantime, I'm gonna go to Miguel. Miguel, say what's up to the people.
Hey, yo, it's good, Frontline. It's your boy Miguel. What's up? But
There you go.
anyways, I'm from Northside High School. I'm a sophomore currently. I'm in the medical program at Northside High School.
There you go. Let's go with Miss Abigail. How you doing?
Hey guys, I'm Abigail Madrid and I go to Dunbar High School and currently I'm a junior, upcoming senior.
Junior, upcoming senior. 1 year to go. Make it the best. Let's go. Miss Michaela, how you doing?
Hello. My voice is kind of messed up, but hey. I'm Michaela Cook. I'm currently attending Dunbar High School, and I'm graduating this year, all the way in June 18th. It's kind of late to graduate, but hey. And I will be attending TCU in the fall. Don't have my hoodie on right now, but that's where I'll be.
There you go. Congratulations on that. And the man of the hour that he definitely reached out to us and wanted to be a part of this conversation. Chief Noakes, say what's up to the people.
Hey, what's up, everybody? But listen, first, Michaela, congratulations on graduating and go Frogs. That's awesome. Really happy for you. Y'all hear me all right?
Yeah, we can hear you pretty good. We good. Loud and
It's a
clear.
little glitchy on my end, so I hope it goes through all right. But listen, y'all, this is great. First of all, thanks to Community Frontline. Thanks Dante and Josh for including me in a lot of great things. And I appreciate you allowing me to come into the forum here and talk to y'all. Brenton and Steven, thank y'all for what y'all are doing to empower young people who are the leaders of the future, the ones that are going to take the reins and go forward with everything. But most importantly, thanks to all the students that are on here. Y'all are already impressing me. Just hearing you speak, your confidence, your respect, your excitement about this. I'm excited about doing this forum because I want to do what I can to answer questions you have, but I got to be honest, I got a feeling I'm going to learn more from you than you are from me.
I love it. I love it. The accountability and the openness of it. Aurora, we got you squared away.
Yeah.
Say what's up to the people. What's your what school do you go to? What grade you in?
Okay, so my name's Aurora Benavides. I am currently a junior at Polytechnic High School and going to be a senior next year.
Right, let's do it. One more year. Make it happen. Make it count. All right, with that being said, we're going to jump right into it. Stephen and Brinson, will you have anything to say to the people?
Well, first, Jocelyn, if you don't mind saying a couple of words, I just want to make sure it sounds okay now because I'd hate for you to not be able to speak your. We can't hear her. I'm going to try to message on the side, y'all, to try to help her out.
We're going to get that squared away.
But just again, thank you, Chief. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, the students, especially. I'm proud of y'all. Thank you for being here. Again, we are from the True Upward Bound Math Science, Upward Bound programs at Texas Wesleyan University. And yeah, thank you and I appreciate this time.
Yeah, pretty much the same thing Steven said. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Josh and Dante, and to the students for y'all doing this. This is really big to give the students an opportunity, a chance to speak, and we definitely appreciate it. So thank you.
That's a bit. Appreciate that. So we're going to go ahead and jump into it. We're going to definitely open up the floor. Moving back from one of the things that I rewatched the video from last time we spoke, and I took away some of the highlights of some of the deeper conversations we got into. So hopefully, if y'all can bear with us and get back into that space, let's have a real conversation. I'm gonna jump it off with there was a real steep divide between how the students felt with the MPOs outside the school or the officers outside the school compared to the people that they have relationships with in their schools, the community resource officers. And the students were definitely speaking on, they talk to us, they have a relationship with us, they know me. And then they also came back with the people on the outside don't. And we have a problem with that. So with that being said, is that still the case? Has there been anything changed? Is there things that that y'all wanted to address? Miguel, I'm gonna start with you first. Is there something that y'all think has changed in the last way since we talked the last time?
I think for me, being honest, I just kept like my distance really. I mean, I'm a virtual student right now for FISD, so I'm not really at school besides just practice. I don't really see my resource officer or an officer really in general besides when I'm out with my family and stuff like that. But we did have a food drive and I saw my resource officer, Officer Mack, the other day. And it was just nice seeing him again, getting to talk to him, catching up, and it was like I never left middle school. It was just there. It was same conversation we picked up when I left. It was still there, and I just made my day. It made my year basically.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That relationship is genuine. It goes everywhere. Abigail, would you speak to how you feel about the police in your school, just to refresh everybody's memory?
The police in my school, I feel they're very kind and generous, but as far as having like a relationship with them and like getting to know them, I don't have that exactly. I know they're always there. I know they're great company, but actually like having a relationship with them, or like being more of a community with and like just having conversation with them, I don't really have that, and more so now that we're online, I don't really see them as much either.
Good. Understood. Aurora, we got you all the way in. We good to go? So tell me,
Yeah.
tell us about the relationship you have with the resource officer at your school, and is it different from the relationships you have with police on the street?
Um, in some ways more than others, there is a difference, but I can't speak as much as far as, school wise, but like I can't really give like a personal opinion because, I'm really just, either at work or at home. And so I can't really speak so much as
That's fair. That's fair. So, Chief, do you have anything on this topic? Just the divide between how the relationships might be different for the students in school and how they interact with the police officers outside of school.
Absolutely. This is a topic I talked about last night. We had a community pop-up event at Lake Como and talked with a lot of the community members out there. Josh, you're out there with us, and one of the things we talked about is community and the police officers aren't really connecting like that happened that really changed the interactions between the community they're in is officers and police cars.
Joina, is your internet going out? While Chief comes back in, let's give another opportunity for the people to refresh their memory. Michaela, can you give an example of how
Hey, can y'all hear me?
relationship was with your officer, and then we'll give it back to Chief when we get them all good.
So it was kind of the same as Miguel. Like I went back to school like for theater practice and stuff. And Miss Harris, of course, recognized me every time I would go up to the school. We'll do our little fist bump and say, "Hey, what's up?" and catch up. So obviously it's very different. And now that I've been driving around more, I guess I'm noticing more of the difference between the people at school and outside of school. Like I just realized we don't really have like meet and greets with the police officers in our school. We do the stuff with our teachers where we get to meet them, but we don't do it with our police officers. We just kind of see them there and not even know their names because I don't really know anyone outside of Miss Harris. And in the street, it's like you can't just approach a police officer, and say, "Hey, what's up? My name is. What's your name?" and get to know them. At least it doesn't feel safe to do that. It doesn't seem like something you want to do, And it's just like, yeah, you don't want to approach them like that.
Appreciate that, Michaela. So, Chief, I think we got you back good and ready to go. I think Michaela just gave an example of how the relationship is, and she says that her officer at school, I think she said Officer Harris, is that correct? Officer Harris is approachable. They got fist bumps and they're doing all of this stuff. And she feels safe. But then afterwards, she says, I don't know if it's safe to come up to a police officer. That's the words that she just said. I'm not putting words in her mouth, right? So can you speak to that for us, Chief?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you heard anything at all I was saying tomorrow, but we had a conversation about this in another community last night at Lake Como, and it was the same issue about being able to connect with officers. And a lot of them have good connections with either an SRO or they had a good connection with an NPO, a neighborhood police officer, but they didn't feel the same connection with the officers that were. What we want is for every interaction you have with an officer to not be any different than what you would have with that SRO or someone that you have a relationship with. I think the problem sometimes we have is officers going so fast from call to call to call because there's just so much going on. Sometimes they don't take the time to do that. Michaela, what you were saying before, I would love for someone to walk up to me and say, "Hey, hello, I'd like to say, my name's Michaela. What's your name?" But we have to realize as police officers, we really, I think, have more responsibility to be the ones that come out and say that, be the ones that come out and start talking to the members of the community. Am I coming through okay?
It's kind of shaky, but I heard like 95% of that. So yeah.
Agreed.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm having a really bad connection tonight, it looks like. The point is that what you're telling me, you're not the only ones to tell me. Your insight sounds like it's tracking with what a lot of other people are saying. And what we're doing to try to change that is we started some things where with the academy classes, the people were trained to be officers. We realized we train them with a lot of different things. But one of the things we need to train them on the most is how to connect with people, how to talk to people in the community, how to feel comfortable with the people that they're serving. So we have these sessions we do at the academy where we'll bring in people from the community who are actually folks who have had negative experiences with police, not people that are just going to come in and tell us they like us and telling us we're doing a great job. They're going to tell us the things they've seen that weren't good. So we bring them in, we let them talk to the entire academy class, and we let the academy class participants ask questions. We don't want the first time these interactions happen to be maybe in a tense situation. We want it to be in a controlled environment like that. The next session, we bring in community members again, but we do breakout sessions where there's smaller groups, kind of like this, where people might feel more comfortable asking the questions they really want to ask. And we're telling them ask hard questions, and the questions go back and forth. Then that last session, we send the academy classes out into the community. So they're actually into the communities, not just talking with members, but they're in the members' home turf now. They're talking to them where they're in their neighborhoods, and it makes the officers more comfortable, I believe, being in neighborhoods maybe they've never been in, talking to people maybe they've never talked to before, and letting them know, yes, you need to be safe as an officer. And there are some people out there that might want to hurt you, but 99% of the people that we deal with aren't going to try to hurt us. We just need to try to connect with them. So it's about changing the mindset of the officers, again, to be safe and make sure they keep the citizens safe as well. But it's about being human. It's about just stopping and talking to someone. It's about shaking somebody's hand and just making an actual relationship type connection. And I would like every interaction to be, now, don't get me wrong. If an officer shows up and somebody's breaking into a house, someone's assaulting someone, well, it's not going to be, hey, how are you doing? Let me shake your hand. They've got a job they've got to do. But if that's not the case, if it's just hey, say you're walking up to a store, the officer's going to maybe to just get something to drink or get gas, and a citizen walks up, just say hi, just have a conversation. We want officers to feel more comfortable doing that. So when people see an officer that's just out in the street, patrolling in a neighborhood, hopefully they can have the same kind of relaxed feelings of safety, and maybe even a connection they would to a school resource officer or a neighborhood police officer.
Appreciate that, Chief. Jocelyn, I have a question for you that you might have never thought about. Maybe you have. Soon you'll be, in a couple years, you'll be 21. Would you be willing to be a police officer? Why or why not?
Can you hear me? Okay. So if I were 21 and thinking about careers, like, yeah, I would love to be a person that helps out my community, but as well as I don't think I would be comfortable doing that just because I do have like anxiety when I talk to people. But just in general, I feel like I would consider it if I didn't have that. I don't know.
Good. That's real. That's exactly what I was gonna go through. I was gonna go around the room, and I want to get y'all's perspective. Michaela, go first, but I want to get y'all's perspective of would y'all want to be a police officer when you grow up? Why or why not? Speak on it honestly.
I actually had a question first. And the question is, how is the mental health of police officers handled? And then I'll say my response and then like repeat the question so you get it. But so if I was 21, that's only 3 years away from now. I feel like, I don't know, I want to be the person because I don't know if you heard about some police forces now have it to where so like a social worker comes with them. I want to be that person, like the social worker person that goes along with the police officer and not necessarily the police officer themselves. So yeah.
Why one or the other?
Well, just because I'm more of like I want to do psychology, like that's one of the things that I'm studying in college. So naturally I want to go more so towards the social work aspect of things. And also because like I'm as a police officer, it's like, you know, you have to respond quickly to situations. I'm also that type of person that needs to step back and think a little bit more, and I might not respond as quickly as I need to. So that's a reason why I don't want to be, you know, the actual police officer, but I do want to be there as like the social worker that supports.
I love it. The support. Abigail, would you feel comfortable or want to be when you grow up a police officer here in Fort Worth, specifically here in Fort Worth?
When I grow up, if I would like to become a police officer in Fort Worth, the idea of it sounds great. I feel like it'd be a way to like help better the community. I feel like I would be a good officer, but the only thing that sets me back is the idea of bearing arms. That's just not something um, I don't exactly want to do. I'm not the kind of person that wants to like bear arms. Um, Specifically because I feel like when I see arms being bared, I get a little scared, and I feel like I wouldn't react as well in those situations. But apart from that, I feel like I wouldn't have a problem being an officer other than that.
That's genuine. That's a big part of carrying a job. You got to be comfortable with the tools you have to use, for sure. Miguel, excuse me.
If you would have asked me this in elementary, I would have told you 110% this was my dream job. But now looking at it, as you get older, you realize the responsibilities that comes with bearing that badge. It says police officer. You're not putting just your life at risk. You're putting others as well. You have to make that split decision. You have to be able to do all these things and make sure your community's safe. And for me, with the rising crime rate that we have right now, I would be an officer just to help that, just to make sure nothing bad happens to my community. Because I'm passionate about this city in Fort Worth. I'm passionate about my city. I'm passionate about my North Side community, and I don't want any harm coming into it. So if it came to the age when I'm 21, yeah, I would think about being an officer.
It's real. Somebody got to do it, right? For sure. I respect that. Aurora, would you, when you turn 21, fill out the application and say, I want to be a cop? Or is that something you're comfortable with? Is that something you would think about? Is it something you consider?
You see, I have been thinking about, military enforcement lately. I have had people, be in the army, be in the Air Force, be in different types of government. And it has been something that I have thought about. But per se, being a police officer, there's a lot of, pros and cons to it. You might have to get to a certain point where you do have to injure somebody. And, you never know how that's going to be upon you. You never know if you actually made the right decision right after you bear arms. And, with a lot that's going on, especially now with the racism, with the inequality that has been going on with the LGBTQ, it's probably not something that I would do when I'm 21 per se. I feel like there's other ways for me to express myself, to show equality, to show that, there's a right to do things. And personally, being a police officer isn't something that I would choose in my defense as a person.
That's respectable. And hey, just if you're thinking about going to the military and the army, there's people out there to support you. I know for sure that there's resources out there as well. It's not always college for everybody. Maybe colleges down the line. So I did it for myself. That's exactly the pathway I took. So respect to that for sure. And here's the reason why I wanted to ask this. Chief Noakes, I'm gonna come to you in just a second. The reason I wanted to ask this, I wanted to give the perspective of the youth because they're the ones that are going to be in the police force pretty soon. Only 3 years for some, a little bit longer for others. But that perception is key because I know when I was growing up, and I know when Dante and Q was growing up, you asked us that question, we might have given you a very different answer. A very different answer for a lot of different reasons. So I wanted to highlight, maybe there's some good going on in the city. Maybe there's some differences going on in the city between half a generation, because we're not quite a generation apart. I want to make sure that that's clear. But Chief, can you speak to, what is it that has definitely moved the generation's perspective from my perspective and some of the people who might be watching this perspective, who's in my age range that lived in the city, to theirs? Can you speak to what the city is doing to make sure that they're getting that connection to, maybe when I turn 21, I might consider it?
Yeah, actually, and I'll be honest with you, I got jobs for every single one of you, and I would love to hire every single one of you for jobs. And I'll start with you, Michaela. You talked about being that social worker that's in the car with the officers. So we have what's called our CIT, our crisis intervention team, and that's exactly what we have. And we've got an officer. All our officers are trained to respond to mental health situations where a mental health consumer might be in crisis. But then we have some officers who receive additional training, but they're also partnered with a professional licensed mental health professional who has at least a master's level degree. So it's somebody not only who's taken a few classes, this is someone who's highly educated in it. And I can see you being, Michaela, being that type of person that rides along with them. But something I want you to think about too. You said you don't know if you'd be a good police officer because you might step back and think before you did something. Well, you know what? That's not bad. There are some situations where an officer needs to act pretty much instantly. But what we're telling officers more and more these days is when you have the opportunity, that's exactly what you should do. Take a step back, look at the situation, and check your options before you just dive headlong into something. Because it could be safer for everybody when you do it that way. Now, I'd like to come back to your question about mental health in a minute, but while we're talking, we just started what we call a civilian response unit. And within this civilian response unit, CRU, we have people that we have trained to respond to non-dangerous calls, like a call for report maybe, or a call about an abandoned vehicle that needs to be checked out. And these people, although they're trained really well and investigating situations like this, they're trained in collecting evidence, they're trained in making reports, they do not carry guns. Not a single one of them carries or trains in firearms. So that would be a way for you to be able to be involved as well, but not have to worry about bearing arms like you were talking about. Some of the other things Aurora and Jocelyn were talking about, maybe can do within the police department. And we'd love to talk to y'all about those things. And then Miguel, you said that you were interested maybe in being an officer and doing something about the crime in your neighborhood and doing something to make the community better because you care. Well, you're exactly the kind of person we're looking for to be that generation of officers coming in. I'm getting a notice that my internet connection is unstable. Are y'all hearing me okay?
For the most part, but you kind of coming in and out for every now and again, but it's good.
And my apologies. This is the second community frontline forum in a row where I had some kind of technical difficulties. This is not on purpose. I apologize, y'all. But those things that I just mentioned, like our crisis intervention team, our civilian response unit, we're trying to find ways to do the job more professionally, to do the job more safely for us and the citizens we're serving, and to have more of an approachable way about us so people feel more, feel like we're including them more in what we're doing. Another way you can get involved, we started something, we had a racing culture task force that looked at our policies and made some recommendations about what we could do to be better as a department and to be more inclusive, especially when it comes to women and minority communities. One of the things they said is that you need to start your cadet program back. What the cadet program is, we hire high school students, I believe it's 18 and up, to come work for the Fort Worth Police Department, because you got to be 21 to be an officer. But you can come in earlier and start working within the department. You could try different areas of the department. You could see if you like some areas of the department, maybe decide, yeah, maybe I do want to be a police officer. Or maybe you come in thinking you do, and after you're there for a while, you say, no, you know what? I don't want to be a police officer. I want to be that mental health professional that rides along with the police officer and goes to calls to help people. Maybe I want to be that civilian response unit person, but it's a way for you to connect with the department and a way for the department to connect with people like you, young people who are trying to figure out what they want to do and where they want to go. And we would love to have you involved in the Fort Worth Police Department. And that cadet program is one way just to get it started.
So those are a lot of great ways and a lot of things to think about. Stephen, you got something?
Yes, sir. Appreciate that, Josh. Chief Noakes, is that cadet program something that's already restarted? I'm sorry, I think I heard that you said it was something that was in the past, or is it something that's currently ongoing?
I didn't catch any of that. I think it's
no worries,
I
sir.
couldn't catch that.
No, I was saying the cadet program, is that something that's currently ongoing?
Yes, it is. Actually, we started that back up mid to late 2020, and it's ongoing. If you go on our website, or police department website, there's a little bit of information about it. If anybody wants more information or maybe wants some updates when we're posting openings and we're hiring, let me know and I'll get that information to you gladly.
Great. I appreciate that, sir. Yeah, that's one thing when we're the trio students that we work with at Wesleyan, we're always looking at different ways of connecting our students to different professions so they can explore different careers, because obviously that's one of our main goals. Like, what degree do you want to go for? What career is meant for them, or what they're passionate about? So different ways of exposure and exploring those opportunities would be great. So appreciate that.
So
can I piggyback
for sure.
The question before the mental health one? Did you see a decrease in enlistees after the Black Lives Matter protests and everything going on with that? Did you see a decrease or maybe an increase in the amount of people that joined or wanted to join the force and got into the academy?
I'm glad you asked that question, because this is actually really exciting for me. The most recent posting we had for applicants for police officer, and this was after the social unrest we saw, we had over 1,600 people apply, which really isn't that far from the normal. But after everything we saw and the negativity, and to be honest, a lot of people tell us we don't trust the police, we don't want to be the police. To see that many people wanted to be a part of the department was amazing. The unfortunate thing is when the test was held, it was right when remember the ice storm, the snowstorm that hit. So some people weren't even able to make it, but we had a huge number of people that were able to take the test. I think they had to schedule a couple of extra sessions just to make sure people had an option, the ability to get there. What's really cool is not only do we have a lot of people show up, but the diversity of the people who are showing up is growing. A lot of that is because of Assistant Chief Julie Swearingen, who started an initiative called Be the Change. And the premise behind Be the Change is if you don't like what's going on in your community, step up and be part of the change. You don't like what's going on in policing or in Fort Worth PD even, and you know what? Come join us. Be the change you want to see in policing. But she doesn't just do that, because we found a lot of the applicants would be minority applicants. The demographic are really trying to get in the department, but then they wouldn't follow through with the process. And what we found was some would apply, but they did not feel that Fort Worth PD wanted them. It wasn't that they didn't want to do the job. They didn't feel like they were welcome. So what Assistant Chief Swearingen did was put together a great team of people who will go through the list of applicants. When they look at that list, they find those demographics we're looking for, they'll actually reach out to them, they'll call them, they'll text them, they'll email them. They'll say, listen, I saw you applied. I want you to know we do want you in Fort Worth PD. What can we do to help you? If they need help studying for the written test, they'll help them with the written test. If it's someone who might have some issues with the physical assessment, she actually comes in on the weekends and helps them run through the obstacle course to make sure they know what they're up against, let them know where their weaknesses are, and get them prepared to do it. So the idea would be the change is making that connection you were just talking about. And I tell you, I'd challenge you to go to any other department in the nation where you have an assistant chief calling applicants to encourage them to go through the process. And what we're going to do is take every one of them, partner them with mentors. So not only do they apply, not only do they take and pass the written test and the physical test, but they get in the academy, they get through the academy and field training, and they're out in the community serving. So it's supporting all the way through the process to make sure the people who really want to be involved get to be involved. And we're actually seeing some of the most diverse numbers we've ever seen that I know of. For instance, we had a class of about 50. Out of 50, we had 13 African-American males in that class alone, which is higher than we would normally have in maybe 2 or 3 classes. The class that's looking like is going to develop into the next one, as long as everybody gets through everything, that will be, in my career, the most diverse class I've ever seen in the Fort Worth PD. So not only are people applying, but it's wonderful to see it's a diverse group of people who are bringing in all kinds of different experiences, different cultures, different beliefs. And my very strong opinion is the more diverse our department is, the better our department is, because if we all look alike, think alike, act alike, and do everything exactly the same way, we're never going to go anywhere. We'll be stagnant. We need that diversity of thought and diversity of experience to push us forward where we need to be. And it's really exciting to see that that's happened.
As development, progress might be slow, but it is development. So at this point, I want to open up the floor to the students and just give you the opportunity to give questions, comments, concerns, vent, get it off your chest. This is the opportunity to speak on your relationship with the Fort Worth Police Department to the man who runs it. So go ahead. Anybody? I'll volunteer. All right, bet. Miguel, go ahead.
It's just the same thing I talked about last time. I have a bad taste in my mouth with officers due to my friends. They weren't legal residents. They were trying to get the residency here for the United States, but they were racially targeted. And it was asked for a green card a while back. They've gone back to Mexico now, but I think that just left a bad taste in my mouth with the department. And it just infuriates me sometimes that, like, hey, they were racially profiled in our own neighborhood at that. Like that's what really infuriates me and gets me upset a lot, knowing that happened. And like, how do I not know it's not going to be me? And how do I not know the demeanor of the officer is going to change up on me and I'm going to be sitting in the back of a police officer car?
You broke up just a little. Again, it's probably my connection, but you said something that I had to ask for a green card. Is that right, Miguel?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, that absolutely should not be happening here. We've had some issues in law enforcement when it comes to people really understanding our role. And if something like that happened, I'd like to know more information about that, because if that happened, I want to confirm that and find out exactly who it was and what the issue was, because we are not immigration. I was in a forum earlier this week talking to some community members, and this lady put me on the spot and she said, so there's a lot going on at the border right now. So if you encounter somebody on the streets, you're going to have your officers check their papers and make sure they're legally in the country, because if they're not, you have to arrest them. I said, ma'am, let me be very clear on this. I don't want there to be any mistake where we stand on this. Fort Worth PD, we are not immigration officers. That is not what we do. One thing, we don't have the time to do it. The second thing is we don't want to do it. And here's why. If we have a community in Fort Worth who, because of their immigration status, is afraid to call the Fort Worth Police Department when they need us, then we have a class of silent victims who will never get the help they need because they're worried about their immigration status. Be quite honest with you, I could care less. And I'll tell you this, let me tell you this too. I recently joined an organization and signed up the Fort Worth Police Department. It's Law Enforcement for Immigration Reform. And what this group is about is the system is broken. Police should not be enforcing immigration laws. We should be doing more to try to help the people that are here rather than try to arrest people because their papers aren't right. So we joined that, and then I also signed a letter recently, and I don't know where it went. It may have died in the legislature, but it was a letter signed by chiefs all over the country that supported giving cities like Fort Worth the option of hiring legal permanent residents and DACA recipients as police officers, because the way it stands right now, you have to be an American citizen to be a police officer anywhere in the United States. Cities and counties don't have the option, but will let legal permanent residents serve in the military. So you're telling me someone is okay enough to serve in the military, but they can't be a police officer in their own community. Okay, so to me, that makes no sense. I don't understand it. So absolutely, I signed off on this letter. We sent it off to the state representatives and senators and congressmen, everybody who has a decision, has the power to make the decision on this. Because if we're really wanting to make, and we're really wanting to make the connections with all the communities in Fort Worth, what better way than allowing those members of the community to become part of the Fort Worth PD, to be the change, right? So I haven't heard anything back on that. I don't know what's going to happen with it, but I'm hopeful, even if it's not this legislative session, that we'll be able to keep pushing that message forward over and over again until we can actually get something like that passed. Because here's my view on illegal immigration. Is it illegal to be here without, the proper documentation? Sure. If I lived somewhere where I didn't know if I was going to, or I knew I was not going to be able to feed my family or put a roof over the head or keep them safe, and there was technically an imaginary line that I could cross, and I could look across this line and see people living in much better conditions, supporting their families, would I go there? I can't tell you I wouldn't, because you know what? I'm going to do what I need to take care of my family. I'm not talking about going to robbing banks. I'm not talking about hardened criminals. I'm talking about husbands, wives, mothers, fathers wanting to take care of their family. So when people ask me about enforcing those laws, that's not what I signed up for. I signed up to protect people, to keep people safe. And I know there are certain things as a department we have to do. The federal government asks us for information on things, we got to give it up. And I will do that. I will obey the law and do it. When you're asking me to go out and look for people who I can say, hey, where are your papers? Or if we're on a call, say you called, say Miguel, you called us and said, hey, somebody broke into my car. Will you come please take a report? Somebody shows up and asks you for your papers. That is not the service we're talking about. And that's not the service that's accepted. So anyway, if we could come back around to that, Miguel, sometime, if you know any specific information, I will look into that incident. But I want you to know we're doing everything we can in Fort Worth PD to connect with everybody, including our immigrant communities, people who may feel they can't call the police, because we want them to know we're here to serve them. We're not here to be immigration agents.
I want to thank you, Chief, for that personally. That clears up a lot of space with me. And I have real respect for you and everything that you've done. I really appreciate that. And that's the reason I'm here. I want to be able to just let that be heard for my friends who they're back in Mexico now, but they just needed to be heard.
I'll tell you what, let me throw this out there, Miguel. How about once you get schedule, when does the season start?
Schedule, we got till next spring,
Baseball.
sir. Next, we got summer league. I don't know if you want to stay out there in that Texas heat. I'll tell you that.
Man, I can handle it.
I'll throw your iced tea out there with you.
Whether it's now or whether it's next season when it comes back around or something, I'll come talk to your whole team, man. We can sit and talk about this kind of stuff if you want to. Maybe we can do it face to face, so I don't have to worry about my internet connection.
I would love that. I would really respect you for that. Thank you so much, Chief. Really means a lot to not just, I'm speaking for the North Side, it means a lot to the North Side. We appreciate that.
You say speaking for the whole North on his back. I feel you, boy.
I'll piggyback off
Go ahead.
that. So you know how like sometimes firefighters would go to like elementary schools and middle schools and stuff, they'll have the firefighter truck. Do police officers do that too? Like they go to the different schools and they're like, hey guys, let's tell you about what we do. You know, do they do stuff like that?
I missed the first part. Do officers go around to different schools and talk about what we do?
Yeah. Do y'all like have events basically where I go up to the school and it's like kind of a meet and greet, but more of like an information session where kids get to interact with you and ask questions. You get to tell them about what you do. Like, do y'all do that stuff regularly? I mean, but beyond COVID restrictions and stuff, obviously.
Yeah, and because of COVID and the pandemic, we have not done as much as we used to. But yeah, that actually happens a lot. When I years ago, I was a motor sergeant, a motorcycle cop. Basically, I was a supervisor for one of the units, and that was one of the units they would call us all the time. And it was usually elementary schools. They'd want us to come out and show them our bikes, our motorcycles, talk about what we do. The kids could sit on the motorcycle and stuff like that. Yeah, and it was a chance for them to ask questions, for us to explain what we do and why we do it. And those are great. I think it's wonderful to be able to connect with the kiddos when they're young like that. But something we're working on right now about getting better at is connecting with middle school and high school students. And one of the things we're working on is developing curriculum to go into the schools where we have conversations kind of like this, where we can have hard discussions. We can ask the hard questions and talk about things where maybe we can see things from one another's perspective and maybe understand each other better and look at each other more as just human beings than as cops and the students. We're also working on some curriculum where we talk about interactions between police officers and citizens, and specifically police officers, say teenagers or college age people, because the goal is for everybody to walk away. Everybody walks away safe, whether they're walking away because they got arrested, they're walking away, they got a ticket, or they're just walking away. Nobody got anything. We want everybody to be able to walk away in every situation whenever humanly possible. So it's about learning how to have a positive interaction. And again, that positive interaction is when we all go home.
Keep the questions coming. Abigail, do you have any questions or comments for the chief?
Yeah, I have a question, but before I say it, I just like to say how refreshing it was for Chief Noakes to talk about how immigration status and how it should be upheld and within the community. So I think that was very refreshing to hear, especially as a child of immigrant parents herself. But also, like he said, trying to bring back those programs of like getting officers to come to the community and interact with them, especially like the younger, like middle schoolers and high schoolers, because I remember as a kid, especially when I had a couple of motorcycle cops or whatever, I don't know the proper name. They would always come to our elementary school and do showcases like that, but the difference was in middle school and high school, we don't see a lot of that representation, and I think that's where a lot of the distrust comes within the community, because we're having those interactions as well. But apart from that, I guess another question I might have,
Hang on just a second.
what's a weakness or something you as an officer or that you have seen that you think is a part of your job and you need to do better to help better the community and maybe yourself?
So,
Hey, Abigail, could you type that message in the chat, because it was breaking up real bad. I didn't hear it real well, but I want to make sure I answer your question. If you could type that in the chat.
for sure. As Abigail is typing the question, we'll get right to it as soon as she finishes typing it. But I want to give Jocelyn an opportunity to ask a question for you.
I agree with Abigail on like how the police, like in elementary, they would come to our school and they would like do career day with us. But in elementary, I feel like I didn't really have an understanding, or I didn't really understand what they were saying. But now as a high schooler, I feel like now I don't have as much information as I used to as to what they do, but I feel like I'm gaining a little bit more knowledge about it.
What do you think, Jocelyn, we could do better? What are some good ways that we could connect and not come in like in an imposing kind of way, but how's some way we could connect with students to give more information? Because this is great doing it like this, but Fort Worth ISD is huge and we have multiple ISDs in Fort Worth. What would be a good way for us to do that, do you think?
I don't know, but
I didn't mean to
Yeah.
put you on the spot. You don't have to have the answer, but but you're right. I think we, after elementary school, we kind of lose that connection, and it's up to us to figure out a way to fix that.
I have a suggestion.
Piggyback onto what Jocelyn said. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead,
But
Michaela.
as the theater kid, I just have a maybe weird suggestion. But what if it was like, since we are typically more comfortable with the in-school officers, what if it was like one day where it's kind of like takeover, I guess you could say, where it's like police officers come in and they kind of take the position of the school officers, or act like they're taking the position of it, and kind of gets to get to the students' attention, because it's like, wait, this isn't my regular, school officer. This is like an actual officer. What's going on? And then you get them all together and it's like, okay, this is a showcase. We're going to tell you about what we do, and y'all get to ask all the questions that you want to ask,
Like that.
That's not a bad idea. And something else we've thought about doing is making a rotation with the school resource officers, the SRO, part of our field training. And field training is a part of training where you come out of the academy and you ride with a training officer to kind of help you make sure you know what you're doing, and help you along as you're learning how to be an officer in the community. One thing we do is the very first phase, the first week, is with an NPO, a neighborhood police officer, someone who specializes in a certain area, kind of like a PR officer. They're really making good connections and relationships in the community. And they go through the regular field training. At the end, the last week, they go with an NPO in the area where they're going to be working. Whatever neighborhood that is, they ride for a whole week with that neighborhood police officer to make sure they learn that community, learn some of the businesses, the residents, the issues that are there, and they get to know people before they're just thrown out there to do the job. It's something that's been discussed, and it's the hard part is adding another week of training, because we need officers out there so much right now. But maybe give them a week of training, or even if it's just a day or two, go out with an SRO, spend a day with an SRO, go talk to some of the students, meet some of them, find out what is really important to the young people in the neighborhoods where you're going to be working. And even if we're not able to do that, maybe like you said, Michaela, we could have once a month, once every 2 months, whatever it is. Make sure officers have more positive interaction with students, either working with SROs, going to certain programs, or being part of those initiatives I was talking about where we're connecting with students in Fort Worth. Oh,
So,
if I can go ahead and answer Abigail, she's in the chat. So what's a weakness you may have as an officer, or that you have seen on the job that needs to be improved upon, and why? I'll say overall, what I think we need to improve upon is what we talked about earlier. Y'all already know, you're very smart. You're catching on to what the issues are sometimes. And it's about making those community connections. A friend of mine told me recently, we don't want officers just to pull up in our neighborhoods, pull up at a store and just sit in the car and look at us, because it makes us feel like they're looking at us like we're suspects, like we did something wrong. And I explained, well, sometimes what happens is someone calls, maybe a store owner calls, and hey, there's been some burglaries of cars, or I've had some shoplifters. Would you mind just showing up a little more, so maybe it will deter crime? So sometimes officers will pull up and they'll do the reports or whatever they need to do in those businesses or in those neighborhoods, not to try to make anybody feel like a suspect, but to deter crime. And what she told me was, well, that's cool and all, but why don't they get out of the car and come talk to us instead? Instead of just sitting in the car trying to deter crime, why don't you get out and go say hi to somebody and shake a hand? And that's the kind of thing we're trying to stress to officers now. We haven't stressed it in the past like we should have. We talk about it, but if you don't really make it important, if you don't make it part of the training, if you don't make it something that you evaluate, it's not necessarily going to get done. So we're trying to impress that more upon officers, and I'm trying to lead that and be that example by being somebody who will go out and do just that. So I will say there's a lot of things we're working on: de-escalation, implicit bias, all the things that we need officers to understand. So when they go serve in the community, they do it the best way they can. We have some amazing officers. I don't want it to sound like our department's a complete wreck. I believe we have the best department anywhere. I believe we have the best officers anywhere, but I also know no matter how good anybody is, it can always be better. If we ever start to settle for where we are now and think we got it all figured out, we're going to get left in the dust, because we got to keep moving forward. And that's one of the ways I feel that we need to make that happen, Abigail.
For sure. Aurora, did you have any questions, comments, concerns, or things you want to get off your chest for the chief?
I actually did. As Chief has mentioned earlier about career day events that we have had in elementary schools, usually as a kid, your mindset is, oh, wow, like this is cool, fire trucks, police cars, sirens, and we never get the idea as to like, how the situation works, what is it that they do and why do they do it? And, I've gotten to, once you're in middle school, you start getting the idea, like, what do I want to do? Do I want to be a police officer? And you don't really know, because your mindset changes all the time. And, I just came to the realization that we don't have career day, in high school. We don't have career day in middle school. And I feel like that I think about it, it's hard for teenagers and younger communities to speak out for themselves, because they don't know, like, hey, what if this is not a question for me to ask, or like why should I feel closed-minded, not speak out, not have a right to say something, have a right to ask questions? Because usually our parents are like, don't get into grown people conversations, right? And when you're a kid, it's like you don't want to intervene. And we get to a certain point where it's like, what if this is people telling us that we need to be quiet, telling us that we shouldn't have an opinion, a right to have an opinion, or a right to ask, any sort of legal enforcement as to certain questions? Because especially if what's going on, with racial inequality, and it's a lot more alive, and people are a lot really afraid. And especially with quarantine, I think that enhanced the part of people staying home, people not going out to stores for unemployment. People did do that a lot. A lot of people did depend on unemployment, and I feel like they're still depending on it, not just career wise, but because of what's going worldwide. Not just because of the pandemic, but we're seeing the news, we're seeing, TikToks and stuff, people being thrown down on the ground. Could be racial, could not be racial, and it's a lot of involvement. And, it's surprising when you're older to see what actually happens in the real world. Because in a kid's way, you think it's all nice and butterflies and unicorns and nothing wrong can happen. And then life hits you and everything changes.
Wow, I don't even know what to say to that. I mean, I think you just said it all, really. But I do have something to say to that. As far as adult conversations, you're having one right now. I mean, that was an adult statement you made right there. And if you think your opinions, your voices don't matter, look what we're doing right now. You do matter. Your opinions do matter. What matters to you matters. I was talking with a group not too long ago, and I'm going to tell you the same thing I told them. A lot of people, maybe because of what they're told throughout their lives, thinking you have to be a certain age or get a certain education or have a certain job before you can really be a leader, before you can take a leadership role. And that is completely false. That is absolutely false. Be a leader where you are with what you got. Do it now. Be a leader today. I'll tell officers all the time, you don't need rank to be a leader, because in us, it's kind of a quasi-military organization where we have a rank structure. We're kind of taking away some of that militaristic mindset, but we still have a rank structure. You don't need rank to be a leader, and having rank does not make you one. I'll tell you, all of you, you don't need to be of a certain age to be a leader, and being of a certain age does not make you a leader. What makes you a leader is how you conduct yourself, how you treat people. Something else I'll tell them is your position as a police officer, your position grants you authority, but your conduct earns respect. And if people do what you say just because they fear your authority, they might do the bare minimum not to get in trouble. But if you take the time to earn somebody's respect, and they will go to the moon and back for you because you've got that relationship then. Aurora, wow, you said a mouthful. You said a lot of amazing things. And that right there shows a level of maturity, level of wisdom somebody twice your age may not have. So this group right here, you're defying what some people say these days, and what some people say is the country's doomed. We're going nowhere. Kids these days, they don't understand anything. They don't care about anything. They got no respect for anybody. When we first started, I think I heard Miguel tell Dante, yes, sir, no, sir, 12 times. Very respectful. I listened to the comments from people like Aurora. You're talking way over the age some people would think you'd have to be to speak like that. It's because you're smart. It's because you've been through a lot. You have gone through more in a time in your life where the last thing you need is a bunch of drama, right? The last thing you need is a pandemic. The last thing you need is demonstrations and social unrest. You're just trying to figure out life yourself. Y'all have had to learn how to go to school from home. You've had to learn how to interact with each other without being near other people. We're social creatures. We're not meant to be isolated, but we had to be for a while. I'm excited to see what this generation, what your generation, and specifically what all of you do, because whatever I did, Josh did, anybody else, y'all are going to blow us away. You're going to do things that we never thought of. You're going to do things better than we ever have. And it's going to be nice when I'm an old man sitting in my rocking chair just to look back and say, look what Michaela's doing. And look at Abigail. And Jocelyn's killing it. Miguel, look at Miguel playing for the Rangers. Look at Aurora over here. I'm excited to see what all of y'all are going to be doing one day. And I don't know, I just hope in some way I've been able to help y'all, because I'm telling y'all got me pumped. I'm excited.
I gotta give a quick housekeeping note. Chief, how long do we have you? I don't want to be disrespectful of your time. We do have some questions for in the chat, and we can keep it going, but I just want to make sure we're respectful of your time, if that's good.
How long you need me? I'm here.
Hey,
I'm here.
we got
Shut it down.
No, we got more questions. I got one question from the chat then. Thank you for keep going. Let's do it. I got one question from the chat so far. They really just want to know, what's the Fort Worth PD's feelings on Black Lives Matter, the phrase, the organization, positive, negative. They just want a clear explanation.
Yeah, I'll tell you the very clear explanation. There's two ways of looking at it. The organization Black Lives Matter, I know a lot of people inside and outside of law enforcement that have issues with Black Lives Matter. The organization may not agree with their tactics, their strategies, the way they go about things. And I'll be honest, I don't know enough about some of the things you hear about on what's true and what's not. But I mean, I've got some concerns too. But when it comes to the statement, the idea, the acknowledgement that Black Lives Matter, we better not have anybody on Fort Worth PD that has a problem with that, because that is an absolutely true statement. Something that I had to get used to was, you hear Black Lives Matter and they say, well, white lives matter, brown lives matter, blue lives matter. Well, yes, all that is true. But I don't think people understood the premise of that statement, because it was almost like our African-American neighbors felt like they had to hear that. It had almost like it had to be said. It was almost like, well, yeah, it's implied that white lives matter, but Black Lives Matter. We feel like we've got to make sure people know that, because it doesn't seem like they do. So reality perception, it doesn't matter. That's what people believe, and that's what people needed to hear. So as far as the organization, yeah, you're gonna have people inside and outside of law enforcement that have trouble with some of the stances they take, and maybe some of their tactics to where they go about things. But as far as the fact of acknowledging that Black lives do matter, and we're all on board on that.
I'm going to continue. I feel like my
Did I freeze it up again?
No, I did. My stuff was on mute, and Michaela took the ball for me. Go ahead, take the thing, run into the end zone. Let's go.
Okay. So, this may be one of those more hard-hitting questions, but what, I guess it's a two-party question. First part of the question would be, what advice do you have for young people like us as we grow into adulthood, as we start, doing stuff like driving and going to college and stuff? What is your advice for, how do we make sure that we're still following the law, learning about the law, first of all, and then following the law and making sure we stick with that? And then the second part of the question is, when it comes to like, it's kind of, I don't know really how to ask it, but it's like the idea of you have to comply, right, from a police officer. How do you suggest someone responds to a police officer telling them to comply if there's use of force, like if there's more force being used maybe than necessary, or if, say, they're asking, like the green card question, and the citizen is like, I know you're not supposed to be asking this question, but like that you have to comply idea is still there. How do you respond to that safely and respectfully?
Let me ask you,
I
think I cut out earlier. Can y'all hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, good. My apologies. My connection is terrible. Okay, so I think I got your question, Michaela. The advice I always give, and I was talking with somebody recently, and they said this is the advice this person gives to their children. Comply now, complain later. Comply now, complain later. And I think what this guy said he told his kids was comply and survive, and then complain later. There is a process, and we even have a police monitor now that monitors our investigations to make sure we're doing them thoroughly and accurately and fairly and objectively. But if an officer is doing anything wrong, there is a process in place to take care of that kind of conduct, whether it's administrative like policy violation or even criminal in nature. Whether it's because they ask for documentation, or they're rude, or they curse, or like you said, excessive force. There are ways to deal with that. My advice every time is going to be comply and then complain. And let us know what it is. Let us fix the problem. But it rarely is going to help the situation if one side or the other, or especially both sides, are escalating the situation. What we want our officers to do is to de-escalate the situation, to bring it down, and to do exactly what you said earlier, Michaela. Anytime and every time there's an opportunity, take a step back, think about it, consider your options, maybe look at going about something a different way, and everybody goes away and goes home at the end of the interaction.
Hey, Chief, can I practically survival makes sense, because that's literally what I got to teach my kids. But even in the chat is going off right now. Reality of that is that not some sort of oppression, because we just have to do what you say, even if we don't trust it, we don't think it's right, and then do it. Like, the thought of that, I get. The practicality of it is I'd rather be alive than dead. But just the thought, even like I said, even the chat is kind of going off on that. Can you speak a little bit more to that thought? Is that not oppression?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. If an officer is doing something like that, and there's actually that's an actual term, official oppression. If an officer is using his official capacity as an officer to oppress you like that, yeah, that's even a criminal charge. That's not just an administrative thing. When I'm a safety first kind of guy, I want everybody to be safe. That's one of the main reasons I became an officer. I want to help people. I want to help keep people safe. So you're right. In a very practical sense, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Ideally, it would never happen, but I can't say it's never going to happen with an officer somewhere, even in Fort Worth. Okay. So citizens have the right, they have rights to have their civil liberties not infringed upon. Absolutely. The reason I say what I say is because I don't ever want to see anyone get hurt. I don't want to ever see any kind of situation where someone doesn't walk away, where someone doesn't get to go home. I don't want you to think for a second that I am encouraging or advocating for oppression, or I'm encouraging or advocating for just laying down and taking it. I'm not saying that whatsoever. What I'm saying is I want people to walk away. The training we're giving officers, not just in our classroom training, but in our scenario-based training, we're training them to do the things the right way they need to do. And here's something else I want you to know. We've recently started duty to intervene training. With duty to intervene training, the best way to explain it is when George Floyd was murdered, there were 4 officers on scene. You had Derek Chauvin on his neck, but you had 3 others that should have done something to stop it, and they didn't. They had a duty to intervene and stop that. So to help prevent anything like that from ever happening, to prevent even what you're talking about right now, Michaela, where it wouldn't even have to be excessive force. It could just be, hey, you're violating my rights. The other officers are supposed to step in and do something about it. And in our scenario-based training, where officers are going through scenarios that they would experience in the public, we're putting them through scenarios where they have to intervene. So we want even our newest officers to be able to step up and tell a more senior officer, you need to stop what you're doing because that's not right. I saw something about Aurora had a question.
That reminds me of something, but I'm going to let Aurora speak first.
Let's go with Aurora, then Miguel, because the comment section free Miguel.
Okay, so
Aurora,
I
Miguel.
kind of had sort of a question for Chief. Earlier, you were talking about programs that you have had for the police officer. Am I correct? I think that's what you had talked about. I was in JROTC last year, and they had given us some paperwork that did talk about that. And lately, I have been debating about going to college. You know, with the simple fact, you know, of COVID, it kind of shook me into certain directions. You know, I have a lot of family that did have COVID, distant family. And, you know, it kind of, you know, shifted me to the point where I want to be there and take care of my family. And lately, I've been thinking about making a business. You know, obviously, when I'm older, to create a business to sort of help law enforcement, but to also help the community. And lately, you know, there's been, you know, obviously natural disasters that have been happening across the world. We see, you know, veterans, you know, becoming the homeless people. And majority of the time, you know, homeless people, they have families as well. And, you know, usually it's where we see in downtown, we see a lot of homeless under bridges, near or behind buildings that are abandoned or could be abandoned. And the business that I want to create is to not just help the homeless, you know, get it together, you know, as far as not just economically, but as for them personally, to show that if you are in a bad situation, there is a way to come up and show that you can set a better example for those that are also going down the same path that you did, and show that there is hope in the economy changing. And, you know, lately, kids do fall behind what their parents do. They lead, you know, parents are an example. Kids are always going to look up whether it's to a sibling or a family member. You know, a lot of kids in very rural areas, sometimes, you know, we always hear the saying, you got to do what you got to do in order to survive. But, you know, there are some people who do sell drugs. There are some people who save bottles and cans and take them to places to get money, whether, you know, it's for food, for drinks, for their family and not for themselves. And I was kind of wondering if you can answer the question, is there something in your program that could probably help me lead onto that direction, as to not just for me, but I personally take care of my little sister, and I want to try and show her that there's no reason for her to be scared. There's no reason for her to want to hide inside the house and play video games. she's very shy because, of police enforcement. Me and her have always been together with our parents. My father is actually African American and our mother is Mexican. And so when we go out to places, there are a lot of, people that have racial differences, whether it's against Black or Hispanic people. And there's also sexists out there. And, personally, there's people in my job that actually criticize my mom for quote unquote doing a man's job, which, there shouldn't be a gender specific as to whatever job there is out there, especially now with everything that's going on. And I feel like maybe there is something that your program could offer to me, but not just to me, but for anyone here on this chat or someone that they know that can help them, lead by example or give them an idea. And I was just kind of, wondering if there's something that your program could help me as a person.
Now, or are you talking about one of our specific programs, or are you asking if we have a program? Are you talking about like a program to empower young people?
Yes.
I want to make sure I understand your question fully.
Yes, a program to like empower people.
I'm sorry, could you say it again?
A program to empower people, young people specifically.
Yeah, some of the programs we were talking about before that, going out and being in schools, I think kind of help. And one that we did last summer and we've done other summers was kind of odd the way we had to do it because of COVID last summer. Hopefully this summer, the program, if the organization is still up and running, we'll be able to do it again. And it was an internship program. So what we did, we went to specific schools in Fort Worth. I think we had Dunbar, Eastern Hills, Diamond Hill. I can't remember all the schools, but we would find students who were interested maybe in jobs as a first responder. That could have been as a police officer, firefighter, a paramedic, maybe someone that's interested in the medical field, maybe someone that's interested in being an attorney, in the criminal justice system. And they would actually work with us in the police department and be paid as an intern to come in and learn about things like that and kind of empower them as far as the information they need. I think, Aurora, you were saying something about earlier, a lot of times you don't know what you want to do when you're in high school. I was 26 before I became a police officer because I didn't really know. And it would have been nice to have programs like that where I could have done some things, learned a little bit, gained some knowledge, and given me the knowledge I need to make a better informed decision maybe earlier on in life. And we've got some programs like that and some other ways we interact. I know one I like to do, we haven't been able to do it in person lately. Dad's at Dunbar, we've been doing it virtually lately, but ways we could, I love the fact that they bring in speakers, and these speakers will come in and talk to the students about things that are important to them and try to empower them in that way. And I'm hoping to have an opportunity to go in there and speak with that group as well. But we're always looking for other ways to do it. We're always looking for new ideas on how we can better engage and empower and inform students in the areas. And if you have any ideas, I would love to hear.
The text messages that I'm getting right now are literally saying, free Miguel, free Miguel, free Miguel. So people got to give the people what they want. Miguel, unmute yourself. You are unleashed.
Thank you. First, I want to say you have my full respect, Chief. Thank you. I can't express that enough. Thank you for everything that you're up here, giving your time to us as young adults, But we've been asking you questions. I want to ask you, what can we do as leaders in our community in order to help give the police officers this image that you guys have on yourselves due to social media, due to pop culture, to all this stuff? What can we do as young adults to go into our community and help clear that up and show that, you guys are there for us, for our safety. You guys want to be there for us, that you care about the community, our cultures, our backgrounds. None of that matters. What can we do for you?
Wow. I know I said earlier how impressed I was with this group and level of maturity you have. And that's huge, Miguel. That is, whatever respect you got from me, I put it back on you 10 times over, man. I tell you one thing we could do, because I love going into the community, and where I've been able to go and connect with people. I come and go like I am one of the community because I believe that I am. And that's wonderful. But, you know, there are areas of Fort Worth where maybe I haven't made those connections yet. Maybe we connect and I go with you into the community and, you know, maybe help make introductions and, you know, facilitate conversations and discussions, because you could go out and tell them all that, hey, the police are here to help us. The police aren't here to hurt us. The police are here to serve with respect and treat people with dignity. But are they going to believe that until they see it? Probably not. Probably not. But maybe, you know, we find ways where we can do stuff like Aurora was saying, like these programs to really empower people. We can find ways to connect like that and have these discussions. Maybe you could be one that say, hey, let's at least listen to what he's got to say. Doesn't mean they got to agree with everything I say or love me just because I show up. At least let's hear each other out. That's all I would ask. Anything you could do to facilitate discussions like that, maybe some open-mindedness, that would be wonderful. Just the fact that you asked, Miguel, you don't know how much that did. I appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
Also want to add to that, Chief, if you had anything you needed for any police officer resource, like you want kids to go out and do stuff, I'm more than willing to go out there and talk to officers, give different perspectives from the youth, because I think that's what everyone really needs right now, is to understand what we're seeing, what everyone is just seeing right now, and how we can all get along, just come back together and just try to get back to a little normal.
That's a great idea. I could definitely see some opportunities there for some conversations with officers. And again, it's not just about trying to change the community's perception of the officers. It's just as important, if not more important, sometimes to change the officers' perceptions about the community and having you come in.
So I got one question from the chat, and then I want to get Brenton and Steven questions in. But while I got that's on my mind, you asked what can we do to get your voice out. The community has got this program with the police department. We're getting it up and running. It's crawling. It's not walking just yet, but it's called community pop-ups. And we just did one on the west side in Como, and that's definitely a good spot for all of y'all who want to get your voice out and speak for whatever issue you might have with the police officers, or you know, whether it's the youth, whether it's old folks, it's old heads, whatever the case may be. This is a great opportunity for you to get your voice heard. So I just want to put that out there. But with that, let's get back to it. First, hold on. Hold on. Michaela, what you got? I'm seeing. Hold on, Michaela. Let's go back. Hold on. What you got? Go ahead. Unmute.
It's more so a comment, and it was about like the previous kind of conversation about the comply and oppression thing. So it reminded me of something that I got from like my British literature class. We read The Interesting Life of Olada. I'm not sure if I'm saying his first name right, but his last name's Equiano. And in one part of his he noticed that everyone had morals, because he was like a slave in like the 1700s or 1800s, I believe. This class just ended. Don't mind my memorization. But
it's in a history class. It's all good. We good.
So he was a slave that became a freedman. He worked his way up to that. And he noticed that everyone had morals. He was like, I noticed that the white man has morals as well, especially through Christianity. He was a very religious guy, Equiano. He was like, they say they have the same type of Christianity. And what I've noticed is there's a lot of contradictions. But he said that he also noticed that it's not the group, it's also the individual. And I feel like that can also be applied to like any organization where we see a lot of oppression and stuff. You might see contradictions where it's like, they say one thing, but I've seen differently, you know? And maybe it's more so the idea of you have one whole group, and then you have individuals that will deviate from the overall group ideal. Just like how Chief was saying earlier about how you tried to tell the officers, you know, there might be that 5% that are trying to actually hurt you, but 90% they're good. And you just need to communicate with them. And with all of these incidents that are happening and going on, not to, you know, detract from the fact that there are situations that should be handled differently. We should also keep in mind that it's like there's the group and then there's individuals, and everyone has their own set of morals. There's the overall set of morals, but then there's also individuals that might deviate from those morals at the same time. And maybe that's why he's like, hey, comply and then complain later. Because if you complain later, it sounds off-putting, but if you complain later, it's like, all right, you can get back to the group that oversees all of the individuals so that they can check the individuals, which actually leads into another question about how accountability works, but I'm gonna let you continue with the chat questions first. So.
Nope, y'all priority. So how accountability works, Chief. You know, if we do basically take it for a second, comply to survive, as you mentioned, and then go back to the people who need to complain. How does that accountability work? First, two-part. First, how do we complain? Because a lot of people don't know how the complaints work, how to officially apply a complaint here for the police department, and then two, what is the accountability part? That's that part, and then we'll go to I promise you, we'll get to the questions in the chat.
All right, great. That was wonderful, Michaela. Thank you. So if you feel that you've been mistreated by an officer anyway, there's been some kind of misconduct, whatever level it may be, there's different ways you can go about doing it. You can contact the officer supervisor, make a complaint there. You can contact our internal affairs unit, make a complaint there. You can also contact the Office of the Police Oversight Monitor, Ms. Kim Neal, make a complaint through there. So there's a couple different ways that those things will happen. I worked in internal affairs for a while, and internal affairs is kind of the unit that polices the police, make sure the police are doing what they're supposed to, the ones that investigate allegations of misconduct. And based on some recommendations from a community group recently, we've moved all those kind of investigations under internal affairs. It used to be that some were investigated by the sergeants, the supervisors, for consistency's sake, to make sure it's all done the way it's supposed to do across the board. Internal affairs is going to handle those all now. If it's an allegation that may be criminal in nature, we have what's called the Special Investigations Unit, and they're the ones who will investigate officers. And, you know, unfortunately, we've had officers who committed criminal acts, and they've had to write warrants and arrest officers because of the way they've conducted themselves, maybe on or off duty. For those who don't know, the police monitor, she is a civilian that's hired, that does not work for the police department. Ms. Neal had a lot of experience working in Cincinnati, doing the same thing there for the police department in Cincinnati. What she'll do is she can track our investigations, again, make sure they're being conducted fairly. She's also has either her or one of her representatives sits on our use of force review boards to review uses of force to make sure we're doing things the right way. So there are different ways, because some people told us one of the reasons I think the police monitor was important. Some people feel if they call and talk to a police officer to report misconduct on another police officer, it's not going to be taken seriously. By pulling the police monitor into the equation, that allows another avenue through which a citizen can talk to another citizen about the misconduct or perceived misconduct, at least of the officer. So they feel, okay, this is actually going to be looked at, where they might not have trusted the police to, you know, us to do it ourselves. Does that make any sense?
It does. It does.
And then as far as the accountability piece, the potential discipline the officer could receive for their conduct, if it's determined that the allegations are sustained, then we have like a disciplinary matrix, something we use to guide the disciplinary process. Sometimes it may be as simple as a coaching session. Maybe it was just a misapplication of a policy they didn't understand correctly. But if we're talking about the difference, to me, is the difference between the mistake of the head and mistake of the heart. If it's an honest mistake, that's one thing. The mistake of the heart's different. That's when somebody does something because maybe they have malice in their heart when they did it. that is much more serious to me, because that's somebody, first of all, maybe doesn't even need to be a police officer. And then that discipline goes all the way up through days off without pay, all the way up to termination. And, within my first, I don't know, 2 weeks in the department, there were about 4 of those where we had situations where officers uh, conducted themselves in a way that was not what we expect, that I believe to be mistakes of the heart, and they no longer work for the Fort Worth Police Department. So that accountability piece has to be there, because for the community to trust us, we have to show that we're holding officers accountable when they're not doing things the way we know they should be doing.
For sure. Jocelyn wrote in the chat, I believe we judge a whole group rather than the moral of each individual. And we should instead judge the individual, like Michaela said. And then Abigail wanted to jump in and piggyback off of what Michaela said as well. So, Abigail.
Can y'all hear me? Oh, okay. So as Michaela was saying, we usually only see like the 10% of like the bad of like what comes from law enforcement, when really there's like 90% of good. And usually we only see the bad, like how police officers may mistreat an individual or something like that, but we don't usually see like any acts of kindness or any good items that a police officer may do. And I just want to get Chief Noakes' input on that, of how he feels when we don't, or equal street, how between the negative and the positive within the community, and how that makes them look as a police, the police force, and as individuals.
That's a really good question, Abigail. I'll be honest, it hurts. A lot of the time it hurts, but the fact of the matter is, we're talking about the negative narrative that's there. There's an officer that could do something in Minneapolis, and when people see what that officer did in Minneapolis, they're going to equate his actions to Fort Worth PD, because it's as if everyone in the uniform is the same as that person. And that's hurtful and it's frustrating for us as officers. But we've got to understand that when people look at an officer, they don't see the person. Usually they see the uniform, they see the badge, they see the gun, and they're not seeing that that's a person there, and a completely different person than Derek Chauvin or someone else like that. And that has really hurt the morale of policing, to be honest with you. And it's that's why, like I said earlier, I'm really glad to see we still have so many people applying to be officers in Fort Worth, because I know there's a lot of departments across the country that aren't having the same kind of results we are. And I'll say, I think part of it is our own fault, in the fact that we don't do enough to show the good things we do. I'm trying to learn to do that more, but really I was raised to be very humble. You don't brag about what you do. You don't put it out there. You just do it because it's the right thing to do, period. But when we see, you could have 100 officers go out to work one day, and 99 of them could do things really well, do a great job, and then one does something wrong. That's going to make all 100 look bad. What I think we need to do is acknowledge when that one does something bad, but do the best we can to showcase the job those other 99 are doing, how well they're interacting with people, the way they're helping students, the way they're reaching out and helping somebody, a student financially, or reaching out to maybe a terminally ill child, or maybe they're putting an air conditioner in the house of a senior citizen who can't afford an air conditioner. These things happen every day. They happen every day in Fort Worth, but they happen every day across the country. But because we don't take the job for attention or notoriety, we don't take the job because we want to get a pat on the back, we fail to get that message out there. But I'm starting to realize that's part of my job as a chief, is to sing the praises of the officers. Yes, accountability's got to be there when they do the wrong things, but I've also got to sing their praises when they do the right thing. So I'm trying to get better about that and to show those stories. So when you look at the news, you look at things that are out there, Abigail, you don't just see the negative, but you see the good things officers are doing as well.
Seem like they saying, Chief, you got to talk your stuff. Sound like you heard that a couple times before.
Yes, sir.
While I got the chat up, Eddie Griffin, situations escalate not by a threat on the part of either person, police or citizen, but a lack of communication. Like the officer who asked Jackie Craig why she didn't teach her child not to litter. Was that necessary, knowing it would provoke anger?
I'd say the short answer to that is no. It was not necessary. As a matter of fact, it was completely unnecessary. That's an example, I think, of what I was talking about earlier. We teach officers to de-escalate situations. And what that means is bring the temperature down. If it's amped up, bring it down. What did that question do? It just ramped it up. It was the opposite of what we're looking for. So no, that was not necessary. And the communication, you're right, is absolutely key. We spend a lot of time training, physically to make sure officers are fit. We do training, driving, and defensive tactics and shooting, all those kind of things. But we found a while back, we're not training as much as we should on the one tool an officer uses every day. There's so many tools we have at our disposal. Some we may never use, but we use our voices every single day on pretty much every encounter we have with someone. So he said, let's put more effort into training officers to make sure they're powerful communicators, they're effective communicators. Make sure officers have emotional intelligence. They have empathy when they're dealing with people. They have some compassion. So that's a great question, because I think one of the areas training is lacked in law enforcement that we're getting better at now, is making sure we're training our officers to be communicators. Hey, you're on mute, Josh.
And it happens.
Come on, Josh, man. You ain't
No,
that old,
right?
Josh.
How I start the meeting saying,
on mute.
how I start the meeting saying, I'm not old enough to be y'all daddy, but I just acted like it. Hey, but I want to give Brenton and Stephen the opportunity to speak, maybe ask a question if you have one or two, and then we'll wrap this thing up by having any final thoughts. So Brenton, Stephen, and then we'll go back around for the chief.
Appreciate that. Mr. Brent, you go first, bro.
Okay. Miles is not really necessarily a question, it's more of a statement. So I saw something a while back that said, not every officer is a racist, not every black person is a criminal, not every Muslim is a terrorist. And it's true. Every time you see the police, and I don't know if it's still on y'all cars or not, Chief, but I know on the police cars used to say protect and serve. And at some point, I heard somebody say, well, it's not really an officer's job. An officer's job is to uphold the law. But granted, an officer could uphold the law, but still protect and serve. Because that's the point of you doing this job. You working for your community because you want to see that community thrive. You want to see that community do well. You want to get to know that community so you can protect it and so you can serve the people within that community. So to me, I feel like everything you've been doing, Chief, I applaud and I thank you for it, because you get it, right? Like, even when we did y'all did the pop-up at Wilbarger Park, and you talked about how when y'all got there, all the officers got there, everybody that was in the park, they left, right? And you didn't want to see that. And the only way we can stop that from happening is if the officers get out there in the community and get to know the people within the community. So if we can just change that mindset and that narrative of, like you said, the action of one person doesn't represent the entirety as a whole. So even with the Black Lives Matter movement, you may have some people out there that's not really there for the movement, doing their own thing, but that doesn't represent the message of everybody else within the movement that's trying to move it in the right direction. So I appreciate you, and I applaud you for doing this for our students. I appreciate Community Frontline for doing this for the students, and the students for speaking up and letting their voices be heard. So thank you for doing this, Chief. Thank you to Josh and Dante, and to the students. Y'all keep doing this. Whenever you get an opportunity to do this, take it. So,
Steve?
Man, I gotta follow that. I'm a little scared now. Usually not. No, I'm just kidding, y'all. Well, definitely want to mirror what Mr. Brand said. And students, most of all, I'm definitely proud of y'all. Proud of each one of you. Josh from Frontline, Chief Noakes, I'm definitely appreciate this opportunity for the students foremost. I had a couple of things as we were talking about opportunities for cops to build that relationship with the community, that positive relationship, and not just always what we see on social media. Because like we've been talking, a lot of the stuff that gets put out there is the negative stuff. And that's one thing I learned from my parents is like, at the end of the day, someone's always going to think, oh, the negative is always going to come out the most. And that's just kind of the same concept here, I believe. So one of the things I had in mind, which was obviously, and Mr. Brent knows this as much. Sorry, I said Mr. Brent. So I'm used to hanging around students all day. So it was from Officer Holland. I'm not sure if he's still there at Pauley High School in Aurora. I'm not sure if you remember him. I know it's been a while since you've probably seen, or she knows him. Okay, cool. I know it's been a while, students, especially for virtual learning. He had an idea, and I'm not sure if he actually was able to come to fruition because it was around the pandemic or right before the pandemic hit, but was hosting an event. At the time, I think he had envisioned and holding at Wesleyan. Mr. Brent probably knows what I'm talking about. I think the whole event the theme was Stomp Out Crime, and Officer Holland there, I believe y'all said it's the police officer essentially at Pauley was talking about having police officers in there, and maybe I was sent to build a relationship not only with the officers from the school, but the ones actually out and about that are driving around policing and protecting and serving. Maybe be a part of events like that on maybe not a regular basis, because I understand y'all are definitely probably busy, but maybe that can be one suggestion. And that's just piggyback off of Officer Holland's idea was, one question that I had, what is the capacity of utilizing social media by the police department? Now I know, and I was literally looking as we were talking on Facebook that the 4th Police Department does have a page, if I'm not mistaken, but what is the capacity that is utilized? Because a lot of the reasons we find out as far as adolescents, as adults, that things that happen around the country, around the world is from social media. It's such a big platform. It's given us the opportunity to have individuals, guests, see what's going on Facebook Live right now. So what is the capacity of the police department and utilizing social media? And again, not specifically maybe the police officers, because obviously kind of hard, like I'll be on social media when I'm out driving around, but maybe is that a department that does that, or what's the capacity of utilizing social media?
Yeah, we're actually on all the major platforms. I say major platforms. A lot of times we have people come by the age of the students we have here, and we ask them, are you on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram? Most of them say no, they're on something else. So it's their parents and grandparents on those. But we are on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, and we have a public relations office, PRO, we call it the Pro Team. And we've got several officers, and we actually have a couple of civilians as well who are more knowledgeable about social media and how things work on, the back end of technology and all. And, part of what they've done is put out like the Darth Vader videos you saw, some of the recruiting videos that were done years ago, but they also are out there pushing out information, trying to get information out to the public. So if you look on any of those platforms or on there, hey, I'm on Twitter. I tweet these days. I'm like a tweeting king, man. I'm killing it out there on Twitter. Y'all got to get on follow me on Twitter, because I've never been on social media in my life, never done anything. And when I became a chief, I said, you got to get out there. You got to get your message out. You got to connect with people. You got to be transparent about things. And the quickest way to do it, I thought I was going to have to get on all the platforms. They said, just go with Twitter. Just get on Twitter. You can send stuff out. It's not, the narrative's not long. It's only so many characters, tag some pictures on there. You got to be able to communicate. So we are out there on social media. I've actually had some conversations with the Pro Team recently. We're trying to find ways to tweak what we're doing and do it better, to really get our message out there more. And if anybody does follow us on any social media, shoot back some feedback, because if there's ways we could connect better or tell our story better, please let us know. What I found is photos and short videos seem to work well. People don't want to read a lot of text, but if you show them, most of us are visual, you can get the message out better that way. So yeah, you're right. We have to be able to connect on those platforms, especially in times of, like we've had with the pandemic, where you can't be around each other as much as we want. We got to be able to connect digitally and virtually when necessary.
It's funny that Chief, I think the students all caught this. Chief, you literally described TikTok, and you probably didn't notice it. You see the face, like you literally just described TikTok, and that's probably what they're telling you to do, but they didn't say anything. Short video.
You're right.
I have some suggestions.
I'm telling you,
Okay.
chief challenges on Thursdays or something like that. but
Y'all are
for
probably
sure,
laughing because I'm using pen and paper, right? But yeah, I'm gonna
got
write
text
your
it to your
ideas down.
son?
What do you got, Michaela?
So, first suggestion, kind of going back to Miss Millie, I think her name was. Um, if it's not already there, I'm not quite sure. But what if you had like just the numbers of the people, the monitors and stuff, the police monitors, have their number on the police vehicle or like somewhere on the officer's body so the person can see it. And also, I mean, I'm pretty sure you have it like on the website, but just have it like on the vehicle or the officer's body to make it more known that there is someone you can contact and call about issues. Um, Other suggestions, social media wise. What if you did like a spotlight, I guess you could say, of officers, especially like the new incoming officers that people, I mean, we have to get associated with the current officers anyway, but especially like the new enlistees, like introducing themselves, like, hello, my name is
Probate.
just like even if they're like for some reason too shy to do a video, they could do something where it's like, I don't know, like their picture and then have them do like a cute little bio or something, and you can post a little bio with their picture, and it's, you know.
It's funny you say that, Michaela, because we actually started something recently called In the Spotlight. You said spotlight officers. We started something called In the Spotlight, where we're spotlighting officers. And it's the first one I did was I interviewed this lady named Carla Shaw, and she was the first African-American female ever to work for the Fort Worth Police Department. I met her at church one day, and I got to spotlight her, and they're putting that together, put it out on social media. But I also was looking at something where they do like maybe an officer of the week or an officer of the month. And I think we haven't done that yet, but I think it kind of goes with what you're saying, Michaela, about something quick. But, why did you become a police officer? Tell us about yourself. Tell us about, what makes you a good police officer. I think things like that kind of personalize it and humanize it and let people see the officer again as a person, not just somebody wearing a badge and a gun. That might help. That's good ideas, Michaela. Thank you.
So with that, I want to give the opportunity to give final thoughts for the students. And then Chief, if you got final words, we'll get you out and we'll be all out of here. We coming up on 2 hours. So thank you again, Chief, for your time. And thank you all for tuning in with us. So I'm gonna start this final comments off with Jocelyn.
Like I was saying, I feel like social media is a huge part of everyday life of people. And it does help like send out information about what is going on in the community. And like I feel like the police can like how you were saying, like TikTok, it always helps see the goofy side of people and like the human side of the police or something. Because I feel like often like y'all were saying, we only see the uniform, we don't really see the individual.
Love it. Appreciate it. Thank you, Jocelyn. Abigail, what you got for the Chief? Final thoughts.
Well, final thoughts. First of all, thank you for talking to us, Chief Noakes. I really appreciate it. I think I actually met you a couple weeks ago at a church, but I didn't speak to you because I was afraid. But I'm glad that we got this opportunity now to speak and actually have a conversation. I think that's very good. But I do appreciate you all, and that's all I got for you right now.
Hey, Abigail, which church was?
I believe it was the Holy Name
Yeah.
Catholic Church. I don't know if it was you. Yeah, it was.
And I had an officer there to help
I
translate
gave you a
for
fist
me.
bump. Yes, yes. But as we've said, it's kind of hard to connect with people right now. But it's kind of hard to connect with people right now. But I'm glad that we did this. I actually got to know you, so next time maybe I won't be as afraid or timid to like go say hi to a police officer.
Chief, you make it.
Yeah, that's great. Hopefully we'll have another chance to talk then.
Can you say that again, Chief?
I was telling Abigail, hopefully we'll get another chance and then we can actually talk in person sometime.
That first she was afraid, she was petrified, but now she's doing something different. Look at you, Chief. Let's go with Aurora. Final thoughts.
I just like to say, as for everybody, Miguel, Michaela, you guys actually gave me a more open mind on a lot of the subjects and made me see things differently. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate you, Chief, for, hearing us out and listening to us, because I have had, I have had my own, personal interactions with policemen. And they don't really just like sit down and listen. They sort of intimidate the feeling that, they really don't have time. They have something else to do. And, I appreciate you for being one of these people who sit down and listen and, understand different perceptions, especially us as teenagers and us going into the adult world. So I appreciate you.
That's dope. Come on now. Let's go. Engine number 9 going down Chicago line. If the train, Miguel, like your final thoughts.
Well, Chief, I just want to say I appreciate your time and I appreciate you ladies being a part of it. And Community Frontline, Mr. Stevens, Mr. Brendan, I appreciate y'all a lot. Thank you for the opportunity for allowing us as young adults coming into this, getting up into graduation, stuff like that, being able to speak. And I can't express enough. You have my respect, my full respect, sir. And I'm back in the blue always. So just know that we do care for you guys as much as y'all care for us too, and that we want y'all to be safe, and we want us to be safe too. So I really do appreciate you being here today. It means a lot to me.
And Miss Michaela.
Well, I very much appreciate like everyone here and the conversations that we have here. Every time I'm here, it's just amazing. I just love the conversations we have on this. I love it. Gives me energy for like the rest of the week. and I very much appreciate you, Chief Notes. Thank you so much for like giving us your time today. Because I know you're very busy. Like with your position, I know you're very busy. Like this is like time that you could be like relaxing and you're talking to us. But hey, you said we gave you energy. So like this conversation gave me energy. I'm hoping it gave you energy too to last through the entire month, really. I guess the only final thoughts or other final thoughts that I have, suggestion wise, is like to highlight the good things that go on. You could do like a little, I forgot what it's called, but you could put like by the end of the week, collect all of the good things that happened that week, and then like post it all at once. And like
You do a newsletter. Okay, like a newsletter, or
it could take different forms. It could be a newsletter, but it could also be like a collage type situation where it's like, you see like the different pictures of what happened, or it could be like, just one post where you just slide and it's like, here's the story of what this person did for this person. Here's the story of what this person, So that could be like on a weekly or a monthly basis where it goes over like all the good things that happen.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Michaela. We actually have something we send out. It's called the weekly compliments, and we get compliments from citizens about what officers do all the time, and we share that with the officers so they get to hear it. maybe we need to be sharing that with the community too.
Definitely.
So again, talk your stuff, Chief. We gonna make sure you do it. But with that, I want to make sure that the community frontline knows how much we appreciate y'all for tuning in, rocking with us for almost 2 hours. Probably a long, long forum that we put on, and y'all still rocking with us. So we thank you for that. We're gonna catch y'all in 2 weeks. And I want to say before we get off the air, thank you again, Chief. Thank you, Fort Worth Police Department, for allowing yourselves to be open to the questioning and y'all trying to be accountable. I always hold y'all to account, and then sometimes we have tough conversations that ain't real comfortable for anybody. But I always try to give y'all credit when you do something good. So these baby steps, I appreciate it personally, and I thank you for representing the Fort Worth Police Department, Chief. With that being said, we'll see y'all next time, Chief.
Hey, thanks so much. I appreciate it. This was awesome. Always enjoy this. Thanks, Community Frontline. And man, thanks to these students. And I'd like to find other ways to connect with y'all down the road. I'm going to get with Josh and Dante on that and see what we can work out.
Do that.